The backstage corridor of PGT 2025 in Dublin was narrow, cold, and buzzing with nervous energy. Bright stage lights leaked through the curtains at the far end, but where Jason stood, shadows ruled. The floor smelled of dust and old cables. Contestants whispered, laughed, and practiced vocal runs, yet Jason remained silent, standing alone against the wall. He was only 16, small for his age, with eyes that carried the weight of too many struggles. His jacket was borrowed from a neighbor, sleeves slightly too long, covering hands roughened by work instead of school. His shoes, scuffed and cracking, had walked him through Irish streets collecting bottles after midnight to help his family pay rent. Jason clutched his audition number like it was fragile glass. His fingers trembled. A memory flashed in his mind. His mother scrubbing floors in an office building, her hands red from chemicals. His father pushing a cleaning cart through silent hallways, humming old Elvis songs to stay awake. That was where Jason learned to sing, not in lessons, but in exhaustion and hope. Around him, other contestants checked mirrors and filmed TikToks. One boy glanced at Jason's clothes and smirked. Jason lowered his head, ashamed but used to it. He whispered in Tagalog, barely audible, "Lord, kahit isang pagkakataon lang. Lord, just one chance." A production assistant's voice echoed down the hallway. Contestant number 417, Jason. His heart slammed against his chest. For a moment, he thought of running. Of disappearing back into the cold Irish night where dreams were safer because they stayed dreams. Then he remembered his parents waiting at home, watching on a cracked phone screen. Jason inhaled deeply, wiped his sweaty palms on his jeans, and took one small step forward, toward the stage that could change everything. The massive PGT 2025 stage opened before Jason like a different world. Blinding white lights washed over him, forcing his eyes to squint as he stepped onto the center mark. The applause from the Irish audience faded quickly into curious silence when they saw him, small, thin, and clearly nervous. The judges studied him from behind the long desk. One judge leaned back in his chair, arms crossed, scanning Jason from head to toe. Another judge whispered something under their breath, raising an eyebrow. The third judge offered a polite but distant smile, the kind given when expectations are already low. Jason swallowed hard. "Tell us your name," a judge said, tapping a pen against the table. Jason, sir," he replied, his Filipino accent soft but clear. His voice trembled, echoing slightly in the large theater. "And where are you from?" another judge asked. "I am from the Philippines, but we live here in Ireland," Jason answered. He shifted his weight nervously, gripping the microphone with both hands like it might fall away. "What will you be singing for us today?" came the next question. Jason hesitated. The audience leaned forward. "Elvis Presley," he said quietly. A few people in the crowd chuckled. One judge let out a slow sigh. Another shook their head slightly, fingers hovering close to the red buzzer. Elvis' songs were big, powerful, confident, everything Jason did not seem to be. The music cue was given. The opening notes filled the theater. Jason opened his mouth, and the first line came out shaky, thin. His shoulders tightened. A judge leaned toward the buzzer, unimpressed. The audience murmured again. Jason's eyes darted briefly toward the judges, fear rising in his chest. Then he closed his eyes. He took one deep breath, remembering his father's voice echoing through empty office halls, and prepared to sing the next line, not for the judges, but for survival. The second verse began, and everything changed. When Jason opened his eyes again, his fear melted into focus. His grip on the microphone loosened, and his voice dropped into a deep, rich tone that no one expected. The sound rolled through the theater, warm, controlled, and unmistakably Elvis. The audience froze. The judge who had leaned toward the buzzer stopped mid-motion, his hand suspended in the air. Another judge's eyebrows shot up as they leaned forward, eyes wide. A quiet gasp rippled across the crowd, followed by sudden, absolute silence. Jason stood taller now, his shoulders straightened. Each note carried emotion far beyond his age, pain, longing, and quiet strength shaped by poverty and sacrifice. He wasn't copying Elvis, he was channeling him, singing with a soul earned through hardship. Close-up shots told the real story. One judge whispered, "This is unreal." Another slowly placed a hand over their mouth, eyes shining with tears. A woman in the audience clutched her chest, shaking her head in disbelief. The lighting softened, wrapping Jason in gold and blue. His voice filled every corner of the hall, echoing against the walls like a promise. With each lyric, memories poured out of him, cold nights, hungry days, and dreams whispered in Tagalog prayers. Halfway through the song, people began to rise from their seats. No cheers, no clapping, just awe. Jason closed his eyes again for the final run, his voice soaring, powerful and steady. The last note rang out, pure and aching, hanging in the air long after the music stopped. For a heartbeat, no one moved. The boy who had walked onto the stage in borrowed clothes now stood at the center of the spotlight, no longer invisible, no longer small, having just delivered a moment Ireland would never forget. The final note faded into silence, stretching so long it felt unreal. Jason stood frozen at center stage, chest rising fast, unsure if he had done enough, or too much. His hands trembled again, waiting. Then one judge slowly stood up. His chair scraped loudly against the floor as he pressed both palms onto the desk, eyes wet and shining. He tried to speak, but his voice cracked. He shook his head, overwhelmed, and simply covered his face for a moment as the audience began to react. Another judge wiped tears from her cheeks without embarrassment. "I wasn't ready for that," she said, her voice breaking. "I came here expecting a performance, and you gave us a piece of your soul." The judge who had nearly pressed the buzzer earlier now stood as well, hands shaking. "I judged you before you even sang," he admitted. "And I was wrong, completely wrong." The crowd erupted. Cheers, whistles, and applause crashing through the theater like a wave. Jason's knees weakened. He pressed a hand to his mouth, eyes filling with tears as the sound surrounded him. Then it happened. One judge stepped forward, reached out, and slammed the golden buzzer. The explosion of golden confetti rained from above, swirling through the lights like falling stars. The audience screamed. The judges jumped to their feet. A judge ran onto the stage and wrapped Jason in a tight embrace. "You changed this room," they whispered. Jason collapsed to his knees, crying openly now, shoulders shaking. He touched the stage floor as if to make sure it was real. Through tears, he looked up at the golden storm above him, proof that a poor, shy Filipino boy in Ireland had just turned doubt into destiny. Backstage felt different now. The same narrow corridor that once smelled of fear and sweat was filled with warm light, applause echoing faintly from the stage behind. Jason sat on a small bench, still shaking, golden confetti clinging to his hair and jacket like proof of a miracle. He kept staring at his hands, as if the moment might disappear if he looked away. A production assistant gently handed him a phone. "Your parents are calling." Jason's breath caught. He accepted the phone with both hands. The screen flickered, then his parents appeared, squeezed together in their tiny Irish apartment, tears streaming freely. His mother covered her mouth, sobbing. His father couldn't speak at all, only nodded again and again, eyes red with pride. "Anak, narinig ka naman," his mother cried. "My child, we heard you." Jason broke down completely. "Para sa inyo po," he whispered. "This is for you." Nearby, the judges spoke quietly to the cameras. One of them wiped their face and said, "Tonight reminded us why this show exists. Talent doesn't come from comfort. It comes from survival." Another judge added, voice still trembling. "He didn't just sing an Elvis song. He carried Manila, the Philippines, and every forgotten kid onto that stage." Jason stood and walked slowly toward the exit doors. Outside, Dublin's night air was cold, but it no longer felt heavy. For the first time since coming to Ireland poor and invisible, he felt seen. As he looked up at the sky, a small smile appeared through his tears. This wasn't the end of his journey. It was the beginning.